Available worldwide at jethro.fm.
Happy to bring on this next guest. Jacob's been one of our favorite analysts to cover the other teams here that we cover. So although we're not happy on the Lions side, I'm happy that his team had a good game, and I'm hoping he had a good Thanksgiving too. So how was the meal here? First off, Jacob.
Yeah, my family's not into football at all, so having to explain everything to them has been interesting over the last couple of years. But they scheduled dinner for right at 3:00. So the fourth down pass to Dontavion Wicks that sealed the game, they were asking me to come in and get ready to say grace as they were getting ready to eat. And I was like, we're going to have to wait a minute, or you guys can go without me. I'm not going to argue with that, but I kind of need to know what's going on. But the meal was great. Shout out Aunt Becky and my mom for cooking and putting it all together. And I consumed about 3 plates in probably 45 seconds because I was starving.
Way to go, Aunt Becky and Mom. We appreciate it. Yeah, that's good. Well, so we got to update the draft here. So speaking of moms, my mom is participating. We moved this to a live draft, which I like. We're going to do it during the interview and try to find a flow of the interview while still doing the draft. My mom ended up having the first pick. And so we'll just kind of move along on the draft board as we go through this interview. So she picked steak with the first pick. I think that's a good pick. That's a solid start. She went with a Maine. That would be true to since she's my mom, it would be true to me too, because that's what we like more than the turkey side of things. So Shayne's now on the clock. I don't know. We don't need to be too strict on the time, but we also don't want to have any Minnesota Vikings situations where we get them in too late either.
I've already got my card written out.
Nice. Okay, well let's just submit it, and then we'll move to Dan after that.
I'm going to go with the obvious number one pick with my first selection in the 2025 Thanksgiving Day Draft. Shayne Graham would like to select turkey as his main.
A solid pick. You can't go wrong with that. That puts our producer Dan on the clock, and he's taking his notes over there. So I don't know if he's ready or if he needs a second here.
No, my hand was forced. I'm going to take ham, so I'm not eating hot dogs on Thanksgiving.
Okay. Well, we're having a run on the mains. So Jacob, you're number 4 here. I'm in the anchor position. So it's your pick. Are you going to stick me with a main, or are you going to go a different direction?
Yeah, so I'm a Wisconsin guy at heart, right? So if I don't pick a bratwurst is a sausage, so I'm going to specify that. You put hot dog / sausage, so maybe I'm cooking the books here a little bit, but I don't think anybody from Wisconsin is going to tell me that having a brat is on any day is a bad thing. So with the run on the mains here, I was hoping that maybe you guys would ignore turkey and go sides or something like that, but that's the route I'm going to go. I'm going to take a bratwurst.
Interesting. Okay, so you're changing my strategy here. I totally approve the bratwurst selection, because if I was going to go sausage, I was going to go kielbasa, given my Polish heritage. So
sure.
Same kind of idea there. So okay, that's off the board. Well, okay, so I'm going to have to take lamb, but I'm going to do this strategically. I'm not going to take it in the first round, because I don't have to take it now. I'm the only one left. That's going to be my last pick. I feel like that's how I have to do this. So I'm back to back, and you're making me kind of playing on the fly here. I'm gonna knock out my sides. I'm gonna go with the corn casserole, because I really like my mom's corn casserole, and she does a great cheesy mashed potato. So I'm going to take mashed potatoes and gravy off, and I'm going to take those two sides and put them on mine, which then puts where we at. That puts you back on the board, Jacob. We're rolling here. We haven't even needed any breaks.
No, yeah. So brats cheese again. Wisconsin's happy. Macaroni and cheese. That's not something that we do at my Thanksgiving that often, but I wish we did, because you mentioned your mother's recipe. My mom's macaroni and cheese recipe is very, very good. So if I'm getting that at Thanksgiving with a bratwurst, I could sim to the end here, because I'm happy with how it went, but obviously we'll play along. But yeah, I'll go mac and cheese at with my second pick.
Okay, that puts Dan on the clock here. I like the way this is rolling here. This is interesting how this is playing out.
I'm taking green bean casserole. Big fan of that.
That was a hot one. That was what Ryan Matthews wanted. That was what he was looking for in the first segment there. So that's a good one. That puts you on the clock here, Shayne. Maybe you need a minute. Well, at some point we're going to probably need a minute. I don't know.
I do not need a minute.
Go for it.
I'm going to go with. So I typically eat carnivore.
Yep.
Which I sometimes stray and I go keto. Okay. So I'm going to go with one of the sides that is not going to take me out of ketosis.
Okay.
So I'm going to make my second selection collard greens.
A healthy Shayne Graham. He did allude that one to me, but I didn't tell anybody that. I wanted to make sure you had that as an option here. So that one's off the board. And then that puts Mom on the clock here. She's outside the studio, so I got to tell her she's on the clock here. So we'll have to take a minute, but we got to get Jacob's takes on the game here because I'm curious. One of the things that I find interesting about this particular game, because these are each kind of like snowflakes, all these individual games. This was whatever it was, 197th matchup or whatever it said at the beginning of the game. But I thought there was a lot of talk about Dan Campbell's aggression last year, and it was when he was successful. Now he's been scuffling a little bit with the result. It's not that they're terrible play calls, but LaFleur to me is one of the least aggressive, and he ended up being quite aggressive in this game and matching Dan Campbell's level of aggressiveness, and obviously had a lot larger success. So I'm curious how you kind of took that in after watching him, obviously a lot more than me, but just in general, you watch LaFleur a lot, and he's a great coach, aggressive.
Yeah, it was jarring just to see Matt LaFleur's level of aggression in the game. And the other thing about it was, as it happened, was that it stayed throughout the game. If you had stuck truth serum in me at the 3rd and 3 where they threw incomplete to Watson right before the conversion to Wicks, I would have told you they're going to go to the line of scrimmage. They're going to do the stupid try and make them jump off sides play that everybody does and nobody jumps. And then they're going to punt and say we trusted our defense with Parsons and Gary and all of those guys. And then whatever happened there would happen there instead. I said it before, given the team 2 downs to pick up 3 yards, and LaFleur did do that. But it was surprising to see him go for it on that 4th and 3 specifically, and really kind of throughout the game. Normally, he was aggressive-ish his first couple of seasons. Last year, not as much. I think some of that had to do, and then this year was, and I was in favor of it during the Minnesota game, how conservative, whatever you want to call it, that they were throughout the game with just running the football and trying to get out of there, which I think actually played, maybe not entirely, but some of Green Bay's favor. It played to that today because the Lions had to play a whole extra quarter in Green Bay, something like that last week. But to me, that was a very significant part of the game. The two teams, they ran like the same amount of plays. They gained the same amount of yards. The difference in the game was Green Bay had 3 4th-down conversions. 2 of those were touchdowns, and one of them was a game-sealing reception on 4th down. And for the Lions, I didn't think they did anything wrong by going for it on 4th down either time. And they get stuffed on a play in the backfield for Jahmyr Gibbs on a 4th and 2. If I tell you need to spread them out and get 2 yards with Jahmyr Gibbs, you'd probably sign up for that. And the other one, like, the result is bad, but Jamison Williams might score a touchdown if the ball's in front of him, and if nothing else, he's wide open, and the ball hits him on the back hip. Like, you can debate whether he should catch it. Goff needs to throw a better ball, all that good stuff, everything like that. But I had no problem with the way the Lions approached the game on 4th down either. It's just sometimes you're not going to get the result you always get. I remember last year when Green Bay went to Ford Field and we were talking after that game, I think the Lions were like 4 for 5 on 4th downs last year, including one that allowed them to kick a game-winning field goal as time expired. So that's kind of where that situation went. I thought Green Bay did a good job of converting when they had the opportunity, and I thought that they did the right thing by trying to go for it.
I agree, and I said this in the first interview with Ryan, that you can't pick and choose based on the result. Hey, it wasn't successful. So now I don't like it, which would be a very sports radio thing of me to do. But that's why our show is a little bit different. But I don't think I liked the idea. But the only problem I had is they tended to favor the inside runs in a lot of those plays. And, I mean, the defense was playing very well, especially the interior of that defense. I just didn't like running into the teeth of that defense. I know one was likely an audible, but whoever ended up calling it, that's that was the tough part for me. They didn't go with anything a little bit more layered. They ended up going up the middle on a couple of those.
Yeah, and really, I think the biggest surprise of this season, and granted, it's Thanksgiving Day, was that the ineffectiveness in general of Detroit's run game against Green Bay, because that was supposed to be like, the Achilles heel of Green Bay's defense. They trade for Micah Parsons. Kenny Clark goes out the door in the same process, and TJ Slayton left in the offseason as well. So that's a big part of the spine of their defense. And then you add in Quay Walker, Green Bay's middle linebacker, didn't play today either. Edrin Cooper missed some time. He got dinged up a little bit during the game as well. And Detroit just 2 games couldn't really run it. The first time around, Green Bay jumped out to a lead. That had a little bit to do with it, but Detroit didn't have much going for them in that game. And then this game, I ran the numbers earlier. I know it was like 20 carries for 68 yards for Gibbs, and they ran for like 100 yards total. They didn't run for 4 yards a carry in either game with their 2 backs against Green Bay this year. And I think that was a massive difference. I'm sure if this game was played in a couple weeks and Frank Ragnow was playing center, then that might be a little bit different. But now, I mean, you look at the way, this is what this game kind of meant today with Detroit losing. Dallas won, so Dallas has a chance to kind of jump them next week with a win on Thursday Night Football. Frank Ragnow may have just come back to play out the string in the regular season. Obviously, a lot of football left to be played, but that's, Detroit is not, the loser of this game in general was not a shoo-in for the playoffs. And now Detroit is a full tiebreaker behind Green Bay because Green Bay's beaten them twice. They do have a tiebreaker over Chicago currently, and they'll get another chance there, and they have a chance against Dallas as well. But this was a massive loss for Detroit, who needed to hold serve at home. And their running game, I think, against Green Bay specifically, is one of the big reasons why they're sitting where they are.
Don't be sending any hate mail to Jacob for that take. It's absolutely right. I mean, this was a big. This could have been a huge momentum thing for the Lions because Ragnow coming back and then stacking the win against the Packers. I think the season outlook would have looked good. But I agree with what you're saying. There's a lot that they're going to have to do. Not that they can't do it. That's not what we're saying. But the path just got a lot tougher here. And you guys are making things way more confusing with the tie. I've already talked about this with you, but the tie thing, I just can't. I'm usually a math guy, but when we get ties involved, Shayne, I can't do it anymore with the ties. Can we eradicate the tie?
I've been a part of a tie.
Have you? How did you feel about that?
Shayne, were you the Bengals-Eagles tie way back when?
Yes, and I had a 46-yarder that could have ended it.
I didn't know that.
I just remember McNabb saying after the game, that he didn't know a game could end in a tie, and I thought he was being facetious, but it turned out that he wasn't.
Yeah, it was. You know what? It was a gloomy, windy day. I still should have made that kick. I look back on that as one of those situations. But there was a situation where my best friend Frosty Rucker recovered a fumble on the 5-yard line, and he tripped and fell at the 2, and they stopped us, and we kicked a field goal.
I think I remember that.
And that would have been that difference in the game if you look back on it, right? And it was so many things should have gone our way that game that didn't. So it was and to be a part of one of the first ties in in that modern era, it was quite the it did not feel good.
That's interesting. I think I do remember that. Frosty Rucker, by the way, one of the best names that has been through the NFL.
And you'd be surprised how many people. I was just with him last weekend, and still to this day, people are like, "That's not your real name." And he pulled his license out, and there it is. That is his legal name since birth. and it is what it is, but it is definitely a cool name.
Oh yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a cool name. But that's an interesting story. I'm glad we got that one out of you. We got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back with Jacob, and we've got some picks to update here for the draft. But stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Coming back here with Jacob Westendorf. We got some draft updates here. So Mom was at the turn here, so she had back-to-back picks. She took stuffing and sweet potato casserole. We're starting to run on the sides a little bit. Those are both very solid picks here. She's got a good meal going. That puts Shayne on the clock. I don't know if he's ready to go. He's been ready every time. I feel like he is not the Vikings on the cards here.
I think I'm going to end up with my full slot of exactly what I wanted for every pick today.
Interesting. I like it.
If you haven't figured out, there's actually one thing I would have picked in the dessert category, but it's not in there.
Okay.
But that being said, you can see a theme with what I'm picking.
Yeah, you're not going bread here.
I'm going to go bread.
Oh, are you? Okay.
I am going to go bread. Okay, but I'm going to go with cornbread. And if you can tell the theme, I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia, so collard greens, cornbread, that was like a staple. So I got that if I'm going to eat bread, it's going to be cornbread, and it's going to have butter slathered all over it. So it's I'm getting exactly what I wanted for my meal.
That's a solid one. I was thinking you would stay away from the bread because of the the carb nature of it. But if you're going to go with a bread, that's the one to go with.
I mean, my other options are.
You got the cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce, okay?
Yeah,
well, that's gonna take my glucose up really high.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna treat myself. It's gonna be the cornbread.
I think that's a great pick there. That puts Dan on the clock. His button is red, so he's ready to go. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna go with the dessert. Start the dessert run.
Okay.
I don't want cranberry and ham, so I'm gonna go. I'll take the rolls off the board.
Okay. So that leaves Jacob in a similar situation to me. That now that's his last because you only have one. You only have one side here, I think, Jacob. So that's the last one. But you don't necessarily have to take that. But you're on the clock now.
Yeah, and I'm not big on any of that stuff, so I'm going to end up stuck with whatever it is that I'm stuck with. I'll figure that out at one of these days. But it's food and football on Thanksgiving Day. So they're naming these things after one particular player. How can you not want to watch a game with John Madden at the controls here? So I will take John Madden as my analyst for my football games.
Smart pick. You're stuck, like you said. You're stuck with the cranberry, just like I'm stuck with the lamb. So might as well just leave that for your last pick here. I'm gonna take the dessert. I'm gonna start that run and go with the chocolate pudding pie. There's only two of these that I really even care for, which is that and the apple pie. So I'm gonna go with the chocolate pudding pie there and take that off the board. And then I can. I don't think anybody's really going to take my people that I would want to listen to. So I'm going to think about those, and for time purposes, I'm going to take lamb because I know I have to take that, and then I'll do my other two with the last with my last picks here, and think of the team that I want, because I'm pretty sure I'm going off the board where nobody's going to take me there. So that puts you back on the board here, though, Jacob.
Yep, so I'm going to pair, like I mentioned, it's football, dessert, I'm not huge on, and the other side is what it is, so I'm going to make sure I get the guys that I want. I think he's the best in the business. I've listened to him do football, baseball for my whole life, so I will take Joe Buck as my play-by-play analyst for the game.
Interesting. I intentionally didn't take anybody because I wanted to see who you were going to take. You know, it could have been an Al Michaels thing there. Obviously, Summerall. You could have gone a couple different routes, and then obviously whoever else you wanted. So, okay, that's a good pick. That puts Dan back on the clock here.
Well, you kind of scared me by saying you're going to go off the board for your announcer.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to take my play-by-play guy.
Okay.
Listening to him with the Tigers.
That's a good one. That would be one on my board.
I like him calling football, Jason Benetti.
Yeah, it's a great pick.
Benetti. He used to be with the White Sox, right?
Yeah, he was with the White Sox.
Yeah.
He doesn't get as jokey when he does football, and his voice sounds great. Doing a game.
I've talked about this. My show ends up becoming a Jason Benetti tribute on Sports Intel sometimes because I do really like him, and Dan knows that because he's produce Sports Intel more than anybody else. But I like how he changes from sport to sport because, like you said, he does get jokey with baseball, but basketball he gets a little bit more serious, especially if he's tethered to Bill Raftery. He has to be, and then football he's a little different too. So that's good because you're setting yourself. I won't give away anything, but you're setting yourself up for a good pair that he used to partner with there for football. So that's a good one. That leaves Shayne with the next pick here.
Dessert is not necessarily a high priority for me, so I'm going to skip over that for now.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Keith Jackson.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very solid pick.
A lot of Michigan football games in my childhood were called by him and Brent Musburger. Those were the two.
Yeah, they had Musburger back in the booth for one of the Sunday night games for the first time in a while. That was interesting to see him. I like that pick a lot. Okay, that puts Mom back on the clock here. So we'll get her pick. She's got a good team going, but we got to get back to some analysis here from Jacob because now one of the things I like to ask you guys, the opposing analysts, I think some Lions fans would obviously have a subjective view of some of those things that happened in the game.
I wondered.
Yeah, well, I like to do it from an objective standpoint because I like to think I'm fairly objective about the Lions, and I believe you to be objective about the Packers, but I always like to get kind of a little bit of a fact check, like, okay, how did you see that touchdown with Wicks in the corner? How did the timeout situation is a little harder to work out because you don't always know what information is happening there.
Yeah, so the timeout on the false start, when you slow it down on the broadcast, it looks like Belton jumped before the timeout was called, but again, that's, to me, I think it's not that different, not no different, but not very different than when, like, it's delay a game, but they give you the benefit of the doubt of blowing the timeout on the play. But, obviously a major factor of the game, does LaFleur go for it if it's 4th and 6 instead of 4th and 1? I don't know. Not sure what the mechanic is on that play. You're also talking to somebody who it's baseball, a different sport, but I am an official. So I tend to stick up for them a little bit more than the average internet consumer might. But the touchdown to me was a situation where that was the call on the field. Looks like the ball's in his hands with his one of his foot still on the ground, and then the other one comes across as well. I think if they had called it incomplete on the field, that they wouldn't have overturned it. But since it was called a touchdown on the field, they kept it that way. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys will remember this, Donovan Peoples-Jones had a play it could have been a touchdown against Wisconsin, I think is who it was, when he was playing in Ann Arbor. And it was like his one foot was kind of down when he caught the ball, but they didn't give that credit to him. They just called it incomplete. It kind of reminded me of that with Wicks. The reality of it is later in the game, Christian Watson has his hand held down by one of the Lions defensive backs. It goes uncalled. They haven't called much on the DBs throughout the course of the day, and then they call illegal contact on Keyshawn Nixon when there's a sack by Kingsley Enagbare. Not to sound like a classic football coach, but I would say if you control the controllables, then the officials just aren't going to matter that much, and you'll be able to kind of take them out of the game if something like that happens. So stuff like that happens all the time. It's going to happen for both teams. It just is the nature of humans trying to judge a game that is played by super freak athletes. But, live time didn't look great.
Well, and I'm glad to know, I didn't know about the baseball officiating. We might have to get you, because I want to talk more with some officials, because I actually am more on that side too. I don't have any history with it other than doing some younger YMCA stuff back in the day. But I think that it's a lot tougher than any of us can imagine. Shayne's been as close to it as anybody. And, that game is moving so fast. And I just think we're not giving these guys, again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, where you're talking about the coach having to make these split-second decisions. It's the same thing with the refs. They don't have all the camera angles we do. They don't have the after they don't have the video to look at unless it's a reviewable play or what have you. And so to process all that information that quickly from just your angle when you're being blocked by 300-pound guys and your view is being obstructed, it's a lot tougher than I think fans make it out to be.
It really is. And now listen, we've all seen some calls where we're like, how in the world do you miss that? And honestly, I think there are some questionable things that happen sometimes, and you have to question, is there a motive behind it? And I think that's a fair thing sometimes to look at. But you have to remember they are human, and our eyes don't always see every single thing that we see on the TV. And maybe every single thing that someone sees from a wider scope when they're looking from the sidelines or the stands or the box or whatever. I think those mistakes are to be had. But usually they're going to be ones that are hard to see. What blows our minds is when we see completely obvious or blatant misconstruements of what the technical rule is supposed to be. And that's where it blows our mind as a fan or even as a player or coach on the sideline. Because, I mean, I've seen some ridiculous stuff over the years, and we didn't need the TV angles to see it. So you got to wonder, like, how does the ref not see that? So that's where we kind of wonder, like, is there some bias? Is there some home cooking or whatever you want to call it? I mean, it's there, but also they can't be perfect. But what really gets us is the super blatant ones.
That makes total sense. And yeah, some of it I think comes down to you get the training regimen that probably could be improved but like you said, there's, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week with the gambling element. Not that I'm insinuating anything and I'm not making any accusations, but there is a natural connection there that fans make and say, hey, there's a lot of money more than ever because it's a lot easier to do this now. It's a lot easier to gamble. And I'm not saying that they're that they're doing anything, but that they're also not beyond reproach too. So there's both sides of that.
Absolutely, and I think as a whole, are games fixed? No, I really want to believe they're not. And everyone talks about the script and all this stuff. Listen, as players and coaches, our jobs are on the line. So we're not going to do stuff to fit some sort of narrative or script. We're going to try to play our best. Now, does that mean that there's an individual here and there that doesn't get affected like the Boston College basketball team, right? Does that mean the guy in the NBA that got caught with whatever he was doing, that referee, I forget what his name was.
Tim Donahue. Yep.
Yeah. So like there's always going to be an outlier on certain things, but as a macro, I don't think it's a real issue. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen every now and then. It's tough to look at when you see it. So sometimes it just makes it really easy to wonder, and those conspiracies kind of play out right in front of our eyes. And sometimes they're conspiracies, and sometimes they're truth that gets revealed later.
Yeah, that's true. I know. And again, that's why they're not beyond reproach. There are things that have happened, and that was in the NBA side, but you can imagine that some of this stuff would potentially happen. But yeah, interesting conversation. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to update the picks. We're going to finish up the draft, and we're going to close this here, I think, with Jacob and talk a little Michigan football because he's a big Michigan football guy, and I think there's a big game coming up sometime soon here.
Some would say.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that after the break. So stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Coming back here with Jacob Westendorf. We're doing the draft. We're talking some football here. Got a pick to update. I like this one. So this is another local broadcaster here, Jacob. But I like how my mom did this. She's always been a big Ernie Harwell fan. He used to do the radio broadcast for the Tigers, and she wants to see him do a football game. I like it. I bet he could pull it off. So she picked him. That puts Shayne on the clock here, and we were having a discussion in studio about some of these broadcasters, including one he knows. So I'm curious what direction he's going to go, or if he's ready yet.
So I'm going to go along the lines. There's some great picks out there left. I know Chris Collinsworth. I'm friends with him. I'm not going to pick him.
Okay.
Honestly, I'll just stop there. Tom Brady was teammates with him. I think he does a great job. I was saying in the break, I don't think he's iconic yet. I think he's got to kind of come into feeling a little more natural with it. Tony Romo, when he first came in, was really hot. Everyone was so impressed that he could, see the defenses.
He's so bad.
But that's the thing. It's like I don't like hearing his voice, and I don't like some of the other stuff. So I took Keith Jackson. I think he's kind of like a very classic, iconic voice that we all kind of hear, and it just reminds us of football when you hear his voice. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with a modern, almost like a shock type voice. I want to go with Pat McAfee.
Okay, I like that pick.
And I'm going to pick him because I've heard him actually do some on-air color.
I have too.
And it's entertaining.
It is. He was very good.
And I think, when you see him on stage on game day, I like it. It's different. It's not the traditional, classic, but that's what makes that show, and that's when you see Saban kind of break out of his shell reacting to him, and all the other guys on the set are like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this type stuff. But the excitement that he gets when he's explaining certain things, when he's doing the games, I think it just brings a little bit of a modern touch. You've got the classic old school guy, and then you bring in the guy that allegedly has been arrested for being drunk in a town square water fountain. I think it's a great match and an entertaining Thanksgiving. I
could see Keith rolling with that too. I do remember, because that was kind of early career Pat McAfee when he was doing those games, and he was good. He wasn't as bombastic as he is now, because he's kind of working his way into a gimmick. He's doing the wrestling and stuff too. Yeah. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. It's a great gimmick. It's working very well for him. And so that's I like that. I like that pick. I wouldn't have thought of him, but I like that pick.
He's definitely a character. He's a type fit. Like he plays a part, and he does a good job of it. I mean, he retired from football to take a contract as a comedian, and so that's where he kind of has that stage presence almost, and I like it. I think it's a fresh way to look at it. Some people don't like it. I do.
That's a good pick. Dan, I think that puts you up here.
Yeah, you probably know, because I think you were alluding to he partners with him, but I actually think he probably would be the number one at Fox if it wasn't for Brady. I'm going to take Greg Olsen.
That's a good pick.
I think when I watch a game, I think he does the best job. And I used to not even know it was him calling the game, but I would be like, I like this guy who's calling.
I think he does a really good job.
I think he's really good at it.
Yeah, I don't think he got a fair shake, if I'm being honest.
Right. I agree with you 100%.
I'm with you on that. That's one of the teams that I would have picked. That's a good pick there. So we got one more from Jacob here before I'm up. So you got your last pick will be cranberry. So what's this one, Jacob?
Apple pie.
I think apple pie is off the board.
Oh, did I double pick? Oh, that's bad.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, you're the one on the phone, so that's harder for you to do. So
amateur move by me here. So what are my dessert options?
I think you got.
I know you took chocolate.
I took chocolate. I think the other three are still available, other than apple pie and chocolate. You got carrot cake, pecan pie, and pumpkin pie. I know this is why I took one early. Those are the three I wouldn't have wanted. And I know pumpkin pie.
That's of the three. That's the best one.
I know that's popular. That's just not for me. That's a good one. Okay, so I get to take my pairing together. Dan took a very good pairing. That is one that I would have liked. I also like Shayne's pairing, but I wouldn't have. I can't say I would have thought of the Pat McAfee part of that. I think I'm going to go. So my play-by-play guys were 1A, 1B. Benetti was one of them. The other one was Kevin Harlan. I'm a big Kevin Harlan fan, and I kind of like Benetti. He does multiple sports. I like his take on football. You're about to say something, Dan.
I was just saying, was he paired with Brady today?
He's usually with Trent Green.
Trent Green, okay.
Yep.
He's a CBS guy then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and he does a lot of the radio stuff with Trent Green as well. Oh, this made me think of another guy for the analyst, though, because for the radio broadcast, Mike Golick does a decent amount of the analysis there, which I do like Golick. He's kind of a sneaky
senior.
Yes. Yeah. Junior's not I've seen him do some stuff too. They're both interesting, but I'm going to go with my original pick that I had identified once Dan had made his picks. Olsen would have been on the board for me. This is kind of Greg Olsen before Greg Olsen to me. Daryl Johnston. I've always liked him. He's updated with the game. You can tell he's still studying it over all these years. And although people could say, hey, he got that job because he was the fullback for the America's team Cowboys, I think he does a very solid job. So I think that's a solid pairing that I would like to listen to. So that puts you back on the clock, Jacob, but your pick is already cast there because we stuck you with the cranberry sauce.
I'll end up with the dog.
Well, that's all right. Then he'll enjoy his meal. That's good. Dan, your last pick. I don't know what
I think I have to get a dessert.
Are you? Oh, you're a dessert. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take pecan pie because I actually really like it. I discovered a couple of years ago. I don't know what is in between the crust and the pecans, but that gooey looking, unappetizing looking, but it actually tastes really good.
That's a solid pick. That's a classic there. So then that's you, Shayne, and then I think we stuck you with what, carrot cake then,
and I'm good with that because carrot cake and key lime pie are two of my favorite desserts. If I were to pick a pie for Thanksgiving, I would have picked sweet potato pie, but since that's not on here, I'm going to gladly accept carrot cake onto my roster.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what to do with the pies because we needed a bunch of pie options. Then we also had sweet potato casserole. But sweet potato pie, we can kind of put an asterisk by that.
And that's kind of a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Southern type thing, just like the collard greens and cornbread for me. Those all kind of fall in that traditional Southern food.
Right. That makes sense. So we can maybe switch that out for Shayne so it goes with the rest of his meal. But those are all good picks. Mom has one more pick. She's got to pick her analyst, but I like these teams here. So Jacob, 2 questions. How do you feel about your team, your roster here? And then also how do you feel about your other team, Michigan here? Because it's an interesting matchup, and although they were writing them off last year, I don't think that's happening quite as much because of the recent history. And so I'm curious of your take going into this game.
Yeah, roster food-wise is good. I'll be happy enough, if nothing else, with my bratwurst and my macaroni, and we'll be good to go from there. As for the D game, as they call it, on Saturday afternoon, which Michigan has won the last 4. You guys may have heard that. You may not have. I think the element of surprise, if you will, is gone. I think this Ohio State team is arguably better than the one that played in Columbus a season ago. This Michigan team, the matchups in some spots, they don't have that dominant defensive tackle group, which essentially took away Ohio State's run game and kind of allowed them to play some of those coverages on the back end and everything like that they did a year ago. Now, on the flip side, Michigan's offense is significantly better than what they trotted out there a season ago. I think they were ranked above the service academies in offense, and that was it. Ohio State's defense, though, is incredible. And I don't like to say nice things about them, but they are. They're very good. I am a little bummed with the present state of college football. Something about last season's game that I think I even talked about with you guys is Michigan winning that game a year ago should have been an elimination game. If you lose to a team by 3 touchdowns, or that's a 3-touchdown underdog, in my opinion, you don't deserve to make the playoff. Now, Ohio State, that doesn't discredit what they did from there. That's just the nature of where college football is at now. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, depending on the way you look at it, this game doesn't really matter to Ohio State. They could very easily spin this as losing to Michigan was a good thing, because then they don't have to go play Indiana next week and potentially risk injury. They don't have to really, just that's the big thing. They wouldn't have to play an extra game, and then they could just kind of get ready for the playoff because they know they're in. Even if Michigan beats them, Ohio State's going to make the playoff. But in terms of the game itself, in the last 20 years of me watching Michigan, I think I've expected, quote unquote, them to beat Ohio State once, and it was 2023. So I don't expect that, kind of like I told you last week when we talked on Thursday. I think that, a 9-win season, if you were realistic with your expectation and having a chance to make the playoff potentially with a win on Saturday, I think you would have signed up for that before the season started if you're a Michigan fan. And that's kind of how I feel now. If they are not winning on Saturday by about 2:15, then I'm not going to be a very happy camper. But my proposal is that since the state of Michigan's football team did not get a win on Thanksgiving, that they should just get one on Saturday, and then the state can be happy as a whole. So I'm excited to watch, excited to see kind of how Michigan's young team stacks up, and really kind of like today was a statement by Jordan Love and Green Bay's offense that this could be a potential legacy maker, if you will, for Bryce Underwood and Jordan Marshall and some of these guys that wear the winged helmet as well. So it's going to be fun. It usually is, and I'm excited to sit back and watch it. We have a snowstorm coming here to my neck of the woods on Saturday, so I ain't doing anything else.
Well, you probably weren't going out anyway, so that's good. But good but yeah, see, Jacob Westendorf, he's a problem solver and an optimist. He's trying to get a win for the Michigan faithful here. Some of the Detroit fans that are Michigan State fans won't like that, but he's trying to make some people happy. Jacob, I got to be honest, I still don't know what to do about Indiana being the other side of this, because I'm just not used to them being good as an alma mater. It just doesn't. I love it, but I don't know.
I'll tell you, Cincinnati that was a guy who I thought for sure LSU or Florida or one of those teams would have just said, here's $200 million. Come here. Maybe they did, and he just doesn't want to leave. But that is a guy who I don't know if Indiana's ever going to become Ohio State or something like that, but I would be willing to bet you they're going to be a contender perennially as long as he's there. I think he is a very good coach.
They were lucky to get him for sure, and they got him at the right time. It's amazing that he was around for that long for Indiana to be able to get him, but getting him at this point in his career.
And if he didn't leave for Penn State, he's from that area. So if he didn't leave for Penn State, what job is he leaving for then? It's kind of the situation you're in.
I think when I look at this, I see kind of his brand is a very, his team plays hard for him. They're loyal to him. I feel like it's his brand to be loyal to them. Now, obviously, we're all human, and sometimes temptation of dollar signs can get to all of us. But I think that he was reproached, and that he stayed on brand and ignored it or disregarded it. Because he sees what he's done, something special at that university. And I think when you look at what a Brian Kelly has done and the reputation it gives that person, Brian Kelly brought Cincinnati and kind of to the forefront, and then he leaves ship immediately to Notre Dame, and then jumps ship and goes to LSU. I think there are certain coaches that when they see that, it's like, I don't want to be looked at the same way. And I think that the brand that he has created at Indiana plays into the fact that I think he's going to be loyal and kind of see it out as far as he can take it.
I agree, and I think it helps that he is there at his current age too, because he's not going to necessarily need to be a mover and a shaker. And if you're not that in the beginning, this is the first Power 5 job that he got. This is he'd been waiting for this as a head coach. Obviously, he coached at Alabama, but this is the first job in the Big Ten, a conference like that. And I think he's really trying to repay them for what they did for him, because none of these other teams took a shot at him. I still marvel at that, but they didn't. And now it's a match made in heaven, and it's working out really well. So I want to talk about your college team after the break too, because I got to get your take on that new hire. But Jacob, we appreciate you coming on and going through this draft with us and all of the coverage that you give us. You're one of our superstars on the show, and we appreciate you coming on the show. And tell people where they can follow you for all of the coverage here.
Yeah, you find me on socials, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Jacob Westendorf. I'm real creative with my handle there. I do like a stock report after every Packers game. I do a report card right after the game is over, so I kind of grade each phase of the game. So pass offense, rush offense, all the way down the line, kind of how that went for the team. And then I do some stuff during the week. So if you want to know thine enemy, for example, on Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll have something that comes out previewing Green Bay's matchup with Chicago, which is who they play. They play the Bears a week from Sunday at Lambeau, which now that game is for first place in the NFC North with today's performance. So that's a big one, and that's where most of my stuff goes. So thank you guys for having me. Obviously, I appreciate it, and hopefully we can maybe we'll get a divisional round game at Lambeau Field or something like that here in January.